This week in Pure Reinvention.
It's not just about the product. It can't be just about the product because it's a community thing. It's not just the product. The product is not what we're providing to the community. We're providing a space.
Episode 70, April Anderson, owner of Good Cakes and Bakes.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. Misty, this one was so much fun.
It's fun. I love April. April Anderson was part of our first We Invent tour in Detroit. And so I've had the experience of seeing her and listening to her story firsthand before this podcast and before listening, although we learned some new stuff about her through this conversation. She's inspiring, she's smart, and she does make a really good cupcake, I'll tell you what.
She is an inspiring entrepreneur, and I'm going to make a confession right now. What I learned from April in her podcast was something I had been not giving enough attention to, the importance of in the reinvention process, and we are going to accelerate what April taught us as a part of our offerings for the Pure Reinvention offerings that we have, because it is so profound.
She's got this great open mind where nothing is wrong. You know, nothing is ready to be so quickly written off until it's tested. It's kind of like a good recipe. You test it, you make minor shifts and changes and additions to it until you have a great product.
When you're with April, there's one thing you understand, and that's April's going to make it happen, whether it's making a product or an environment. April understands what she wants, and April is going to work to get there. And that is so attractive to see in an entrepreneur and as a leader.
And speaking of environment, as you listen to this podcast, you'll hear a little noise in the background. And that's because this interview happened right there in her space, in her shop, which is a very cool element. And it'll make a lot of sense as you hear this conversation happen.
Let's listen to this podcast now. This episode of Pure Reinvention is sponsored by the Detroit Experience Factory, where they use interactive experiences and innovative resources to help newcomers and locals alike get more connected to the people, places, and projects in Detroit. Seldom on our podcast do we have someone with acquaintances which uses words like Oprah Winfrey and Bill Clinton, yet today's podcast guest, which is April Anderson, co-owner of the Pastry Chef, boasts those group of individuals that she hangs with. So, April, we're very pleased to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, April, of the 5 steps of the reinvention process, which of those 5 steps do you most closely associate yourself with?
I think I most closely associate myself with the connect part. The connection that I have with Detroit, being born and raised here, going to school in Detroit. I moved away for a couple years for employment. Then when I came back, it was like I never left. And so now to be a part of the rebirth, the revitalization of Detroit as an entrepreneur is exciting, and I can't wait to see what's more to come.
How about your superpower?
So my superpower, I have several, but my main one, I think, is my ability and my love for baking. My ability to see something and create a baked good from it. That is my superpower. And
with everyone having a superpower, we also have that opposite end of the spectrum, our own kryptonite.
Yes.
So what is your kryptonite, April?
My kryptonite is still baked goods. Because as much as I bake, I love to eat as well. And that's not always good.
Well, I think we all have a sweet tooth.
Yeah, mine is a little overboard.
And what a great place to spend time with,
exactly,
right? It's in a place which is continually producing the sweetest, most wonderful goodies in the world.
That's right.
Make sure you put in a plug for your business. What is it again, April?
So my business is Good Cakes and Bakes, and we are located at 19363 Livernois, which is on the Avenue of Fashion in Detroit, Michigan. And our website is goodcakesandbakes.com.
I'm taking you right back to how does your background of being a pastry chef and an entrepreneur put you into company with Oprah Winfrey?
So let's start with Oprah. So when we first opened, I didn't bake here. I baked out of a commercial kitchen called Detroit Kitchen Connect. And by baking out of that kitchen, I used to go at 3 a.m. and I baked from 3 a.m. until 7 a.m. And then I was here at the bakery from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. I did this for 14 months. And Oprah did a tour in 2014, Live the Life That You Want. And she came to Detroit, and in each city that she came to, she wanted to make sure that she spotlighted an individual who was doing something spectacular in the city of Detroit. It was part of the Toyota standing ovation. And the person was Davita Davidson. And how she heard about Davita Davidson was there was a piece done on Good Cakes and Bakes from Channel 4 about working in the commercial kitchen and how that came about. We were the first ones to be licensed out of the commercial kitchen. And so they did a story. And so Oprah thought that was such a wonderful idea. She reached out and she came and she videotaped us baking. They came to the bakery. And then when she came here, we got to bake and take her baked goods. It was a wonderful experience. Before that experience, I really wasn't an Oprah fan. I've seen, I didn't understand what people were so in awe of her about. But to be in her presence, I can totally see it, because when I left out of there, I was like, I can do anything in this world. She is such a great motivator, great speaker, and just the energy that she puts off, and it radiates off of her onto you, and you go out thinking like you can do anything in the world.
Isn't it interesting? They may be, I think they already are saying the same things about you, April, as well.
I don't know.
So then Bill Clinton.
So then last year in June, I got to go to Denver to be on a panel with the mayor of Detroit, Mayor Duggan, Rip Ramson, which is the president of the Kresge Foundation, and former President Bill Clinton. And that came about, I guess that Detroit was going to be the keynote topic of being a comeback city. And when they reached out to the mayor and to Rip Ramson about coming to speak on a panel, they asked both of them at two separate times, like, we wanted to bring a small business entrepreneur to talk about being part of the rebirth of Detroit. Who would you recommend? And they both said on separate occasions, you should bring April Anderson from Good Cakes and Bakes. And I was like totally in awe. And it was a wonderful experience. They flew me out there. Along with flying me out there, they flew me out. I had to bring 800 pieces of gooey butter cake, which is one of our specialties, and 800 brownies. So just imagine trying to get that on the airplane. It was not a good thing. But we got it there. It was wonderful. We got to meet Bill Clinton. We got to speak on a panel about the wonderful things going on in Detroit, the great opportunities that's going on in Detroit, and how we've been a part of it.
So all of this good fortune that you have just been talking about, which has given you great exposure,
yes,
has come about because you yourself have been passionate about being an entrepreneur, and you've been passionate about where you want to be an entrepreneur at.
Yes.
Can you give us some background on you and why Detroit and why an entrepreneur and why you're putting in this kind of work?
So to start off, I've been baking since I was 9 years old. But when I was growing up, there was no celebrity chefs. So my mother told me I need to go to school for something that's going to pay bills. So I went to school. I have an MBA in corporate accounting. But in 2010, my love for baking just continued to be there. And I was like, you know what? My sons was finished with school, so it's now empty nesting. I was like, I'm going back to school to get a degree in pastry art. So I went back to school to get a degree in pastry arts. In 2013, when I was about to be finished, I said, you know what? I'm going to leave my day job and I'm going to open up a bakery. But I figured I would give myself 1 year to find a location. I knew I wanted to be in Detroit. This is where I was born and raised at. And I knew I wanted to be in a neighborhood. Only because currently in Detroit you have 3 core neighborhoods that gets all of the attention: downtown, Corktown, Midtown. But there are so many more neighborhoods in the city of Detroit, so many more places that could use the things that we wanted to offer. And so this neighborhood was the neighborhood that we chose, which is the Livernois corridor. And it was because, I grew up off of Livernois. Growing up my whole life, my parents still live off of there, Livernois. But this is where I did my very first pop-up. So outside of baking for my family and a few friends, I had never baked for strangers. So this was the very first opportunity that I got to bake for people who didn't know me, who had never tasted my baked goods. And it was I got a wonderful, wonderful response from the community that we needed to be over here. And there was a proposal put out from the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, the Revolve program, and they asked the community what business they wanted over here. And of 90 business, they ended up picking 14, and we were one of the 14 of 90.
Oh, how cool.
That they wanted over here in the neighborhood.
So you used an interesting word that I want to understand how it fits into the development of your business, and you used the word pop-up. Okay. What does that word mean?
So pop-up is, It means a lot in different areas, but here in Detroit, it is where you get the opportunity to occupy either for a day, a week, a month, 6 months, a space. It could either be free or it could be at a small cost, but it's kind of like a test market where you can pop up without a lot of commitment, test your product, test the pricing of it, test the market to see if the market demands it, if they want it. But so we got to do it here on Illinois for a weekend, just one weekend, just 2 days, and people could not stop talking about it. And after we did, that was our first pop-up, but then throughout the whole summer, as we decided that we were going to participate in the Detroit Revolve program, we started doing more pop-ups. So it was like a market to get people to know who we were. So when we did open, people would come over here.
Were those pop-ups in the same location or in different locations?
It was all over Detroit. We did it here on Illinois. We did it on the east side of Detroit. We did it downtown. We did it in Eastern Markets. We did the Grosse Pointe Farmers Market. So we was all over Detroit.
And what was the point of the different locations?
There was 2 reasons. One was because we wasn't for sure what area of Detroit we wanted to be in, right? We knew we wanted to be in Detroit, but wasn't for sure what area in Detroit we wanted to be in. And because we wanted to reach out to everyone. So when we figured out our location, those people would be so in love with our baked goods that they would come wherever we were at.
Oh, yeah.
And that really worked. Because we get people who come here and it's like, I remember when I had your cupcake or your gooey butter cake when you were on Jefferson, and that was the end of June of 2013. And I have been looking for you since then. So it was a wonderful, wonderful ideal to do those. It was great because it was very low overhead for us to. I was baking at home at that point, to bake at home and go to these different locations. It was wonderful.
Is that why you picked the word connect as one of the reasons that you connect with the 5 steps? Because you could connect, you got such a strong response from the marketplace?
From that's one of the reasons, but the main reason is because, so the ownership is me and Michelle Anderson, which is my wife, right? And we both believe that you can be a destination spot. People can come from all over to your bakery, to your location. But if your community does not buy in and connect with you, you won't survive. So we knew that we wanted our space to be a community space because we wanted to connect with the communities that we served. And Detroit, as big as it is our whole community. So that was one of the reasons for the pop-ups.
So this is more than just a bakery.
Yes, this is more than a bakery. So this space is 2,300 square feet. We currently can seat 102 people. And the space is used for community meetings, for community fundraisers. They use the space for their association board meetings. People rent out the space for birthday parties, for baby showers. It's totally not just a bakery.
Okay, and so I've got to ask you this question.
Yes.
If we took away all that community involvement and just made it about the product, what would you say?
It's not just about the product. It can't be just about the product. Because it's a community thing. It's not just the product. The product is not what we're providing to the community. We're providing a space. The product is just a plus. It's just an extra plus. The community space is what our focus is.
The connectivity to the neighborhood, the community,
that's
is the real business.
That's the business. The product is just the extra. That's just the plus part of it.
So you've completely flipped the model for what an entrepreneur thinks when they think about developing a product as the key. You're saying it's all about connecting to your environment, and then they will logically come to your product.
Exactly. Right.
But where do they teach that, April?
They don't teach that no place. That is something that you have to want. That's something that you have to know. And that was something that me and Michelle talked about that we didn't want, because at the time there were very few community gathering spaces. You can gather in like a coffee shop, Starbucks or something like that, but there was like a time limit. Like, they start giving you a look like, okay.
Yeah, in fact, most people discourage it. They call it loitering. They think you should be moving on.
Exactly. And like some places give you like a 30-minute Wi-Fi, and then they block you off the internet, and that's not what we wanted. So we make sure people know that if you come in here, you don't have to buy anything to use the space. Don't feel like if you come in here I got to buy something. It's not about buying something. The space is open for you to use. We have Wi-Fi. I have brought out my computer for someone to use here because they didn't have a computer but they need to do work. It's all about the community space, and we knew we wanted that.
So how does that attitude of community within what your business is, how does that radiate out into the actual community? What kind of positive things happen when you start to behave in the manner that you're talking about?
So when you start connecting with the community and they feel like that it's not just about the product, you just don't want them to come get a product. You want them to use the space. They start appreciating it, and they start using it, and they start telling people about it. So it gives them some type of ownership to it, because everyone in this community know us. They come here, they talk to us, they bring their kids here, but they feel like, they watched us from the beginning. They've been connected to us since the very beginning, since we opened. And as we grow, we involve our community when we ask questions like, what do y'all want us to do next? Everybody was like, ice cream. So then we brought ice cream. So we reach out to them and ask them, what do you want? So they feel like they're a part of our growth.
You've made them a part of ownership,
Yes.
and they're working hard to keep you sustainable and
Exactly.
keep you viable.
Exactly. And they make sure when they come and be like, how is everything going? Do we need to do anything? Do we need... And the communities on the east side of Illinois, they always like reaching out, like, what do you have something you want us to put in the newsletter? Is there something going on that you want us to put in there? We need to make sure that people know that you're here and that you stay here.
So now you have customers begging
Right.
how they can help you.
Exactly.
How many entrepreneurs would just die to have that kind of approach? And basically what you said is you've got to reverse the model and not make it about the product, but make it about the community.
Exactly, because you can have a product, but if your community isn't buying into it, you're not going to be there long. You're not going to be sustainable if the community isn't buying into what you want. You can't come into a community and decide what they need. You have to come into a community and find out what they want. You don't get to decide for them what they want and need. You have to ask them and provide to them what their desires are. Or they're not going to support you. And if they don't support you, you don't get to stay.
Now, you mentioned that your superpower was baking, but really what you said was to create baked goods.
Yes.
So what I heard was create. So because everything I'm hearing about the community and everything is about creating something new. Where did you learn to be so open and aggressive in the creation space? Because that's so cool to see you creating something out of very little.
So I really, really have to give that to Michelle. She's all about finding what needs to be done and finding a solution to it. I'm the person who likes to sit in the back and observe and then go figure it out myself. Mm-hmm. She's not. She's the person who wants to reach out and ask you. She wants to create a survey and say, so what should we be doing different? What should we be doing better? Me, I'm the person who sits in the back and is like, okay, so that didn't work, so let me try this, let me try that. So that all comes from Michelle.
So you're validating that opposites do attract.
Yes, definitely, totally. Yes.
So, but what you are doing while you're kind of hanging back and watching is you're observing where there are opportunities.
Right, where there's opportunities as well as where there's weakness and where there's gaps that needs to be filled in, and how we can fill it in without compromising ourselves and our integrity. What can we do to change something without changing us?
So one of the things that's always impressed me about the reinvention of Detroit and the reinvention of almost anything is the role that diversity plays in a reinvented thing. So whether it's diversity of gender, whether it's diversity of ethnic background, whether it's diversity of age, whether it's diversity of thought, I mean, whatever that diversity is. Can you explain how important it is that we remain open and diverse in our thought process to really gain the success we're looking for?
Yeah, so I believe that there must be diversity. Everything can't be the same. You have to, not only does there have to be diversity, but there have to be inclusion. You have to include and welcome everybody. And if you don't, then it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. The only way you have success is if everybody's invited. Everybody has to be invited to the party, right? Everybody needs to be able to play on equal grounds. That's the only way things work.
How did you learn that?
I hate to keep saying this, but Michelle is that person.
Yeah, she's the one, and my guess is that if I were to ask her,
she would say that this way.
She would have opposite things to say about what you have brought to the partnership, which is what a good partnership is is all about.
Yes,
I'm amazed by your courage and almost fearlessness to create what hasn't been created in a space that yet has not been defined. Can you talk about the role that courage plays in how you've been able to succeed so far?
So I don't know if I would say it's courage as I would say it's faith. So when I left my job, it was all on faith. Everything that we do is all on the faith that a higher being, and to us that's God, is leading us. So we're only doing what he's telling us to do. We're only doing what he's inspiring us to do. And as long as we continue to follow and do as he tells us to do, we can't go wrong.
There is a pathway, isn't there?
Yeah, you can't go wrong as long as you're following it. Yeah. I'm
going to give you a couple of minutes here to just tell us what really in your deep soul is the critical difference between success or failure to an entrepreneur.
I think the only thing that differentiates that is stepping out and doing something. You can't succeed if you don't try. That's it. You can't succeed if you don't try, and the only way you can fail is if you try. Both of them leads back to trying. You can fail by trying, or you can succeed by trying, but it all leads back to trying. You have to have the courage, the faith, the belief to step out and believe in yourself and your product. Believe in what you're doing is good for you, good for the community, and good for mankind. And as long as those things are there, you can't do nothing but succeed.
April Anderson, Good Cakes and Bakes, you are phenomenal.
Thank you.
April says it's all about stepping out and doing something. And she did with this business and getting it off the ground. That was a leap of faith.
She is such a courageous entrepreneur. I've got to tell you, what a strong connection to Detroit. She's absolutely owning her role in making Detroit and her space a proud place to be from. She is absolutely owning the product that she's creating. And more importantly than that, Misty, and this is the most profound thing that I've heard in all of the podcasts that we've done, is she understands the role that community plays.
And it's major, and you're right. It has been a big lesson for the Pure Reinvention team, and as we go forward, and it's a good reminder for anyone who is working to build a collaborative space. It's be open to that community, and if you don't have that thriving base of support, you're not going to get very far.
What April has so eloquently shared with us, which we're sharing with the rest of the world, is that without community, you really have nothing. And I think at times we put the product first, and we tend to focus all of our thoughts on product development. And what I am learning, as I'm on this journey with everyone else, is that the role of social media, the role of telling stories around the campfire, the role of building a community is maybe the most important focuses of all that a business needs to have, and we do not give that enough attention.
It's true. And in the world today, you hear the trendy word branding, because it's so much more than colors or a look or a clever mission statement. It's that whole enchilada of how you make people feel, what they remember about you, what you've built around your products. And then a lot of times that has way more sustainability than the products, because those might change.
So the symptoms of declining revenues, declining membership or declining customer base, declining, which I used to talk about not having the right products, is really now in my mind the lack of having your community. And if we were able to build the kind of robust community around our company, around our nonprofit, then the products can come in and out as they are needed and as they are necessary, and the community will actually help you identify what kind of products that you need to have. But if you start to see that you're getting disengaged from your customers, people are wondering what your value is, you've probably lost the community.
The other thing that she said that I really like to talk about was the diversity in thought and inclusion. And she's creating that space where diverse thinkers can come and be included in conversations and have meetings. And I recently heard a radio interview segment where they were talking about this. And when you have people that don't have diversity in thought, they'll experience the same stumbling blocks. They will hit barriers at nearly the same time. And including other thinkers and other perspectives, they hit roadblocks at different times. And that made so much sense to me. And I think that that's something April has done by rallying this diverse team around her, that they were able to overcome these roadblocks even quicker.
Misty, if you're a company that's been around for 100 years, or whether you're a company that's only been around for 1 year, when you create diverse thought into your community and around the products that you're creating, I think you're absolutely right. The roadblocks that one person may have will not be a roadblock to the person sitting next to them, and they can actually now help each other through the dynamics of how all of these roadblocks are actually ways in which we can enhance our community and get stronger. They don't become barriers or impediments. They become actually opportunities to grow. And the other really strong comment that I heard April make, and Misty, I want to get your impressions about this, is how April is really, really good at observing.
Oh, that's true. You're right. She is. She sees a lot more. Well, and she's the back of the house, or she likes to be the back of the house.
She thinks she is. I'm not convinced of that. I think she's right there in front. But
well, and she is, and and ownership comes into the powers of her observation. But I think that she's a great observer and notices. We've talked about being a noticer before, and notices the little things, and that can make all the difference.
I think April has an astounding ability to observe behavior, and I think that comes from being interested in the community, encouraging to a community, and recognizing what the community even is. Right? A community is really made up of behaviors rather than people or of words. It's really made up of the way people do business and how they think as opposed to what they say.
So seriously, listeners, if you guys ever have a chance, you're downtown in Detroit or around the town in Detroit and have the opportunity to go check out Good Cakes and Bakes, go visit April, go visit the team there, and enjoy the space and buy some delicious pastries.
Make sure you tell her you're from Pure Reinvention because she is a big fan. Remember, if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it Pure Reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter @Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.